Greetings and salutations, people there. Austin here. Last time we went back to the Zinnia region as it is the most current region reboot video on the channel. The first part did pretty damn well. The second part, the less said the better for my self-esteem. Today, we are heading back to Gotham with another batch of the Pokemon who call it home. Just a bit of housekeeping before we begin, however. As is the case every year, I will be taking the month of July off to work on my next video and to just enjoy my birthday without worrying about having to get a video out. I'm still figuring out what video I'm gonna do in August, so we'll play it by ear there. And secondly, if you hear the fan in the background, I apologize. It's starting to heat up down here in Texas as we get closer to summer, so you're just going to have to get used to that. Without further ado, let's begin. Alagunk, the sewer dweller Pokemon. Alright, first up is everyone's favorite scaly cannibal, Wayland Jones, aka Killer Croc. Since Wayland is constantly becoming more and more monstrous as he mutates, and his comic artists make him bigger and bigger, it felt right to have him be a two-stage evolutionary line. The first pass of this design wasn't too far off from the final one. I only really needed to make the eyes bigger and to shrink the overall body about 10 to 15% to help the proportions feel more like a baby Pokemon with a big old bobblehead. This did have scales at one point, but I scrapped them to help simplify the design. I wanted the sewer gunk on the body to look like a pair of overalls or kind of like an old wrestler's leotard, playing into Wayland's time as a wrestler and sideshow freak. The colors weren't too difficult, only really needing to adjust how dark the yellow sections were. I made these shinies white to play off of albino alligators and Croc's original appearance in Batman the Animated Series. I really love this line. Canadile, the Sewer Lord Pokemon. The evolution here is based on the larger, more monstrous versions of Croc over the years. The first pass wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great by any means. Granted, I got the overall foundation and look at the Pokemon down in that pass, but it needed a lot of tweaks, mainly anatomically. The design looked flat, so I spent extra time making sure the proportions and the perspective were on the up and up. In the following passes, I made the eyes smaller, removing the pupils while I was at it after some feedback. I removed a spot pattern I had on the first pass that I later replaced with the rust pattern on the body to help look like corroding sewer pipes. The muck around their arms is supposed to look like the cuffs or bandages Croc has been known to have on his forearms in a lot of his designs. I had to adjust the colors multiple times to get it to this point, mainly with the scales and the shade of brown for the muck on the body. This is my personal favorite of this batch of designs. Freesteel, the Cold Heart Pokemon. Next up, this frozen automaton is based on Victor Freeze, aka Mr. Freeze. The first pass was a lot more robotic looking, taking heavy inspiration from his later designs in Batman the Animated Series, the New Adventures of Batman and Robin, just to be more specific. The pose remained the same going into later passes, so that was nice. Unfortunately, the original design was also boring. A fun suggestion sent my way proposed the tiny man floating in the cryo tank, and the current design was born. So I added the tiny man as the focal point. I massively bulked up the body to compensate for the tank torso, and it was pretty much good to go from there. I did add some more details after the fact to help break up the colors, but overall, that wasn't too hard. I wish I could take credit for this original shiny color scheme, but it was a suggestion sent my way, and a damn good one at that. Rendering the tank was easily the most time-consuming process, but it was worth it. It came out fantastically. Nightwatt, the Elefeather Pokemon. The first up for the Bat family is one of the many evolutions for Aviate, this one being exposure to a Thunderstow. Naturally, this is based on the boy wonder himself, Dick Grayson, aka Nightwing. The first pass was pretty damn close to being perfect from jump, only needing to flip the canvas and adjust the line work issues. The hair cloth in particular needed a little bit of work. I wanted to include a bit of the famous disco design for Nightwing, so that's where the glider / feathers came in, and to help balance out the colors. I knew I wanted the Eskrima sticks to be the focal point of the design, so I had the feathers be electrified to draw in the eye. I did the same for the tail feathers, just to help break up the colors on the lower body, and I thought it made a more interesting design. For the shiny, I may not like Nightwing in red, but it was too obvious not to do. Alf Rodent, the butler rat Pokemon. The last member of the Bat family proper for this video. I'll touch on that statement more in the next entry. We have the glue holding everyone together, Alfred Pennyworth. I thought a mouse would translate well for a butler, and just to have more animal variation in the region itself is never a bad thing in my eyes. The proportions were the biggest thing holding the first pass back. The feet were too small, the neck was basically non-existent, and the head needed to be shrunk a tad. The tail is also a bit too thick overall. In the next pass, I fixed the proportions issues listed previously and added the vague bow tie pattern on the chest to help break up the colors and further allude to Alfred's suit. I love the fur cloth over the arm and the feather duster tail. I really think that helps sell the butler motif for this design. Oh, I did have to simplify the mustache to just be part of the muzzle versus having it be its own color. It was getting a little too complicated otherwise. Color-wise, the only thing I needed to adjust was the shade of blue. Pilfer, the cat burglar Pokemon. Now we have the special group of designs, the Gotham City Sirens. I know that Selena and to a lesser extent Harley are more or less part of the Bat family, but I still like the Sirens as a group. So, these three toe the line between hero and villain, depending on their moods. Enough rambling about that, let's ramble about the design. Design-wise, I essentially combined the Batman the Animated Series and the Batman from 2004 designs, and I gave her the classic purple from her OG costumes. Overall, this design was super simple to iron out. The whip tail is easily the highlight of the design for me. The posing wasn't too hard. Selena has a lot of reference material to pull from. I just had to make the shiny based on the animated series gray suit. It was too good just to pass up there. Holy Quinn, the Jester Pokemon. Easily the hardest of the Sirens design. I went through a lot of options for this Pokemon. Originally, I was thinking of a monkey or a rabbit for Harley to play off of her gymnastic ability and flexibility, but a fox was thrown out during brainstorming and it worked really well. I knew I wanted to make this Pokemon be quadrupedal for more variety and just to make sure it's not furry bait. Originally, the shiny and the normal colors were going to be swapped, going off of Harley's more current position in life with the dyed pigtails. Also kind of just looked like cotton candy. Unfortunately, it didn't really read as Harley Quinn at a glance, so I swapped the palettes. The first pass's legs were also way too thick, and the pupils it had didn't add much, so I removed them or fixed them in the following passes. I added the diamond patterns on the side to help sell the Harley vibe and just, break up the colors. This is definitely my favorite of the Siren designs. I wish I could take credit for the name before I forgot to mention it, but alas, I cannot. Holy is the Chinese word for fox, so it really worked on both fronts. It is a fantastic pun. Venalure, the environmentalist Pokemon. Fun fact, I originally wasn't going to draw Ivy in this video, but upon reflection, it felt wrong to design 2 out of 3 of the Sirens and not complete the trio. So I added this on a whim, and I'm glad I did, if just to soothe my OCD. For this Pokemon, I wanted her to feel more dangerous than the other two, while still being pretty in a vague sense. I drew inspiration for the head from the 2004 version of Ivy with her rose-like hair. I did briefly consider giving her flytrap arms like her Batman/TMNT counterpart, but I felt that'd be ripping off Plantasm from the Vanek DLC, so I had her costume be the Venus flytrap. First pass got the overall design down, but the flower, hair, and the overall proportions needed work. The torso and head were too big, same with the arms for that matter. The hips were also a little too wide and it just looked off. So in the next pass, I shrunk the offending body parts. I made the fly trap sections more 3D for a better sense of depth, and redid the rose hair to feel a little bit more authentic. I went through a few name suggestions before I settled on the one before you. I wish I could take credit for this one, but I cannot. Ivy here really does help make this batch of designs a lot stronger. Alright, that's another Fakemon Special under the bag. I loved a lot of these designs for this batch, even if some of them were a bit of a pain to work on. I'll see you when we return in August. Maybe. I'll be honest with you, I've been feeling a little burnt out with the channel as of late, and I'm hoping the break will leave me refreshed and ready to keep going. So, the next video will be a surprise for both of us. See y'all later. This is Austin signing out.